Welcome to English 2450, Com 2010, Intro to Film, Week 11, lecture video number 3 on sound design. In this video, I'll be talking about the last two stages of sound production, editing, mixing, and I'll also be talking about the perceptual properties of sound, which are volume, pitch, and timbre. So the 4 stages of sound production are design, recording, editing, and mixing. We've already talked in the last video about designing and recording sound. Editing and mixing is where things start to get maybe a little bit more complicated though. So let's take a look. Designing sound, recording sound, editing sound. So once we get to the editing phase, this would include something like replacing dialogue with re-recording through a process known as ADR. Now ADR stands for automatic dialogue replacement. Automatic dialogue replacement. And this is a computerized process. Essentially, what ADR does is it replaces dialogue that was recorded during the film shooting process with re-recorded dialogue that was done in a studio kind of after the fact. And it turns out that actually most of the dialogue in any given film has been re-recorded. It's something like 80 or 90% of the final sound in a film was recorded after the fact in a studio. And that's because a lot of the dialogue recorded during filming is not really usable. It's not loud enough, there's too much background noise, whatever the problem may be. So ADR is very kind of commonly used in the editing process for film sound. Editing the soundtrack is as complex and time-consuming as editing the visual track of a film. And these two processes take place simultaneously. They take place at the same time, right? And that's because we expect that the editing of the visual and the editing of the sound, we want those two things to sync up. In an audiovisual medium like film, we want the audio and the visual to sync up. So you need to edit those alongside one another, right? They need to be kind of side by side. And the soundtrack is just as complicated and time-consuming as the visual track. This is important to remember because, as I said in my first video for this week, we typically think of film as a visual medium. We watch movies, but they're also an audio medium. We listen to movies too, and the sound is incredibly important. So editing is a very time-consuming and difficult and multi-layered process. Sound editors can also use, in addition to like the re-recorded dialogue, they can use libraries of previously created sounds. So they have access to lots and lots of pre-recorded sounds in these libraries, these massive archives that they can reuse in their films, right? So one of the most famous examples of this is called the Wilhelm scream. Now this was a scream that was recorded in a film, and it's been used over and over and over again in film. And I think part of the reason why it's the Wilhelm scream and it's recognizable is because it's such a unique sound. And it's just kind of this very kind of goofy or silly scream that's used a lot in different films kind of over and over again. So if you go to Canvas, the clips and images for this week, there is right here a clip of the Wilhelm scream being used in different films over a long period of time. And this kind of shows the extent to which sound editors will actually reuse specific sound effects over and over again. The Wilhelm scream is one of the most famous examples, but it's not the only example. So this is editing, right? Editing is the process of kind of choosing and kind of re-recording the different sounds that'll make it into the final film. Now, mixing is different than editing. Mixing is different than editing. It's a related process, but it's combining the different soundtracks onto one composite soundtrack, right? That's composited with the picture. So it's like taking a dialogue track and a white noise or an ambient noise track and a sound effects track and layering those all together and adjusting the volumes, filtering out unwanted sounds, creating a balance between all of those different things, the sound effects, the ambient noise, the music, the dialogue, right? So mixing is balancing and filtering all of these things together so that the final sound mix, the levels, the balances, etc., all work well together. And digital technology allows for lots and lots of overlapped soundtracks, which means that films now have very deep and rich and layered sounds. And because of that depth and richness and layering, that means that the job of the mixer is incredibly important. It's one of those things you don't often notice in a film until you see someone do it badly. So if you've ever watched a film where the sound mix is done poorly, you might not be able to make out important pieces of dialogue because the music is too loud or the background noise is too loud. You might get these kind of weird jarring moments where it seems like something is louder or quieter than it really should be. But if a sound editor or a sound mixer does their job well, that mixing can really create an entirely different level of meaning, in the film. So sound mixing and sound editing are different from each other. The primary difference is that sound editing is choosing the sounds and putting them onto soundtracks. So this can be dialogue, sound effects, whatever it happens to be. The sound editor wades through lots and lots of different possible sounds, picks the best ones, and then puts them on a soundtrack. The mixer then takes that completed soundtrack, composites and layers the different tracks together, and then mixes and balances them to create the final mix that will actually be played alongside the film, right? So that's editing versus mixing. That seems like a really minor distinction, but these two things work really well together, and both of them are definitely necessary components of getting a final kind of film sound that works well for the film, right? So the next thing to think about here, since we've worked through the process, right? The sound in a film is designed, it's recorded, it's edited, and then it's mixed. And then presumably it's complete, right? It's a complete mix that can be, played alongside the audio of a film for the specific functions laid out by the director and the sound designer. Now, important things to think about when we think about sound, though, also include how we hear, right? So it's not just how the sound is created, but how the spectator actually perceives that sound. So there are a couple different perceptual properties of sound that I wanted to talk about. And then in the next video, I'm going to talk about different dimensions of film sound, ways that film sound can be used to enhance or alter the rhythm, the fidelity, the space, and the time of an overall film. So when I'm talking about perceptual properties specifically, though, I'm talking about three different things here: volume, pitch, and timbre. Now, these are three qualities that a sound designer has to keep in mind when they're considering their audience. Now, volume basically just equates to loudness, right? But pitch and timbre are a little bit more specific. Pitch refers to the frequency, highness or lowness of the sound. Most sounds in films have a mixed frequency. Very high-pitched sounds and low-pitched sounds can be slightly unsettling, off-putting to us. They can be painful even to listen to. So most films use mixed frequencies, not entirely high-pitched, not entirely low-pitched, but a little bit of both. Now, timbre is a little bit more difficult to describe. It refers to a harmonic quality, tone, or texture, right? It allows us to make distinctions between different instruments playing the same note, for example. So timbre is what allows you to tell the difference between a cello and a guitar, for example. We know that those two instruments have different timbres. Timbre is also often used to refer to the quality of a specific person's voice. A specific person's voice might have a unique timbre to it, right? A harmonic quality that separates it out from other sounds. So if you're listening to an actor, we could tell the difference between the timbre of the voice of James Earl Jones and David Cross, right? We know that they both have very different kind of harmonic qualities, and that those harmonic qualities affect kind of what we assume about the speaker, what we assume about their role in the story. So volume, pitch, and timbre are important things to consider when you're listening to a film. How loud is something? Is it high or low pitched? And what is the timbre, the tone or the texture of the sound as well? So in the next video, I'll talk about the 4 dimensions of sound, which are rhythm, fidelity, space, and time. So do stay tuned for my next video.